I really wish the religious could actually, prove God or support God or anything really. I'm not all that picky. Yet they can't do any of those things that they say they can because they don't really care about the outcome. They just really want to believe. And that's stupid. So let's get back into it. Austin Reed is telling us how to prove, in gigantic air quotes, that God exists, and he's doing that by doing what every single idiot apologist and believer does, just stating it confidently and pretending that that's going to be enough. It's just not. I have no idea who he's making this video for, because I can't imagine anyone who would actually want to see it. Maybe that's why he's only got 204 subscribers, and most of them are probably atheists waiting to laugh at his ridiculous screeds. Well, I'm not subscribing because this is just too dumb, even for me. So let's wrap it up, not that there's anything better floating around out there, because if you're going to be really honest about it, they're all this dumb, aren't they?
We are all one with it. We're all one with reality.
In a very real way, yes. But when it comes to the religious, that's clearly not the case. At least mentally. They want nothing at all to do with reality. Now, that doesn't really matter in a real sense because you can't exactly walk away from reality into your childish fantasy land, but you can certainly make believe, which is really all the religious are doing. They just really want it to be true. But that doesn't mean that it is. And this is exactly why faith and subjective feelings mean absolutely nothing when it comes to determining objective truth. It's either true or it's not, and if it is true, then you should have a means to discover that outside of your own head. I can't tell you how many discussions I've had with the religious that devolve into, I'm right. No, you're not. Yes, I am. If that's the best that you can do, then you've got some serious problems. But there are a lot of problems out there, aren't there? And we're going to run into most of them in this video, I have a feeling.
So I'm trying to make sure that that makes sense to you, that we use metaphors to describe the infinite, to describe the universe.
The universe isn't infinite. In fact, as far as we can show, there's no such thing as a true infinity. That's just a concept, not a real thing. This is also where the religious go sideways, because they care more about the ideas in their heads than they do about the facts in the external world. This is all about fifis and faith, not about facts and evidence. That's what makes it so difficult to hold an intelligent conversation with them, because far too often they're only spouting what they wish was true, not what they can show is actually true, and they don't understand why they need to back up their absurd preconceptions. That is not what this is all about for them. That's why they're so laughably wrong all the time.
But the metaphors that Jesus used was the Father, but I don't think he really literally meant a big daddy up in the sky. He really meant like the creator.
I'm probably repeating myself to a certain degree here, but then again, that's all he's doing, and I gotta say something, don't I? But you have no evidence that Jesus existed at all, at least not as a real human being. You can't show us that a real physical Jesus ever said any of the things that are recorded in the Bible. That's just an assumption, not something verifiable with evidence. Granted, you can make a case for not needing evidence if you just presume that Jesus was a fictional character in a book of mythology. I can discuss the meaning of what Harry Potter said in the Harry Potter books. Does it really matter? No, not really. But if you wanted to go around the book club and discuss the feelings that you take away from the dialogue, then by all means knock yourself out. It just doesn't have anything to directly do with the real world, especially when you're talking about magic and witchcraft, which, as luck would have it, it's pretty much the same thing going on in the Bible, isn't it? So I don't care what Jesus said until you can justify that it actually matters. And the religious, they're not even trying to do that, are they? They just really wish that it was true. Yeah, okay, so what?
Like the intelligence behind life. And back then, he used that metaphor. He didn't call God a mother because back then it's a very patriarchal, sexist society. You have to realize that.
Again, so what? We understand why the myths were written in the way that they were. It just proves that God wasn't directing the human authors, because it makes no sense for God to be sexist, even though that's how he's always depicted. This is just people writing down silly tales that match their own cultural makeup, because that's how human storytelling always goes, isn't it? If you're hoping to convince anyone who doesn't already fall for this nonsense that it's true, sorry, but you're just not doing a good job.
If Jesus did exist, he had to communicate his insights at the level of development of the people in that society.
And if is still not because. I guess this proves that his creator isn't all-powerful, or he could make the people understand no matter what level it was presented at, right? This is always an excuse that the religious give, because they are trying to rationalize their beliefs to the facts, not the facts to their beliefs. It had to have been just like this. Well, how do you know that? Because it's the only way that our beliefs make sense. Yeah, about that. Maybe your beliefs are just bullshit. No, they just have to be true. This is the standard religious cycle that we see constantly, right? Start with a belief that you really like for emotional reasons, and then try to force everything else to comply. If the facts don't agree with your faith, then it's the facts that are wrong, because your faith simply can't be. This is why conversations don't go well with the religious. Because you're not talking to rational people, are you?
So you have to consider that he used those metaphors in the way that he used them to communicate with the patriarchal society of that time.
Now, you notice what he did there, right? I called it before he did it. He just said, if Jesus existed, and then continued, assuming that Jesus did exist, because that's what he really wants to be true. If is not because. Yet they pretend it is constantly, don't they? This is never about the actual truth. This is about getting to that dopamine shot in the brain that they're desperately after, and if you dare to disagree, then they get mad at you, because truth means absolutely nothing to these people. It sounds good to me, doesn't mean anything, but they really can't do anything else. What a bunch of morons.
So somebody really high up in development, how does he come down the mountain to reach you with where you're at?
That's assuming that there's anyone up the mountain to begin with, and that's where all of this goes wrong. It's just an assumption for which he can provide no evidence, and without evidence, there's no reason to take anything that he's saying seriously. That is, again, why this video has 1 upvote and 26 downvotes, at least as I'm making this. Pretty much every comment on the video is negative and laughing at his absurd assertions, and he's just running around doubling down on his own stupidity because he really likes the idea. But liking the idea doesn't make the idea true, and it's the truth that matters, even if the religious can't get that through their heads. Because, they're just dumb and stuff. But let's get back to it and hope that he's got something better than bald assertions and wishful thinking coming up. But somehow, I really don't think he does, do you?
He has to use metaphors, and the thing is people took them literally, and then they developed a whole belief system out of that. So God is not necessarily your ideas of God. You have to question whether they're true.
I have no beliefs about any God. I'm looking for evidence. You got any of that? Because clearly he's not questioning anything. He just really likes the ideas that happen to appeal to him emotionally, and he's in the middle of theistic story time asserting things for which he can provide absolutely no corroboration, but which just have to be true because he really wants them to be true. He, as usual, isn't listening to his own advice, and he's certainly not listening to anyone else's. He's just in this for the feels, and he doesn't give shit one about the reals. It is bizarre just how many people I run into, religious and non-religious alike, who are just like that. What the hell is wrong with these morons? I'd really like to know.
But in a way, all of your ideas are occurring within God, because if you think about it, one of the defining features of God is that God is omnipresent.
How do you know that? This is the problem that the religious always seem to have. Their definitions are all just made up. How do we define a real thing? Well, we examine that thing to see what its properties are actually like. Take a sheep. We can look at a sheep. It's got 4 legs, usually has white wool, at least in this example, and it has 2 eyes. We'll stop there for no good reason. We can determine the average size and weight of a sheep, at least given a decent sample size. We can study its behavior to see how it operates. We can cut one open, humanely, to see how it works inside. There are lots of things that we can do to objectively determine the characteristics of a real sheep. So which of those things can we do with any God? Well, the answer is none of them. There's nothing that you can do. There is no way to determine if any of these characteristics that man has just made up and stapled onto their gods is accurate, because there is no evidence that any gods exist at all. This is a serious problem, especially when the religious start telling us all about their imaginary friends with absolutely no data whatsoever to back it up. So why should anyone think that any gods are omnipotent or omnipresent or whatever? Why should we think that any gods are real? And the religious have no answers. In fact, they just run away from the questions. And that's kind of a problem, right?
Which that means that God is the universe. God is everything.
That's your claim. Now back it up. We have a perfectly adequate term for the universe, that being universe. Why do we need to attach a God label to it at all? They are desperately trying to attach significance to a concept that simply doesn't require it. Then they run around with the goalposts because they're desperate to get to somewhere emotionally comforting when your comfort doesn't get you any closer to demonstrable truth. Not that they'd give a damn about the truth or anything, because, demonstrably they don't. They just really want to believe. And how stupid is that?
Everything that exists is God, because God is within everything. It's everything.
Continuing to repeat yourself over and over and over again doesn't make it one bit more true. This is just argument by assertion, not demonstration of fact. But like I said, facts are terrifying to the religious. They have zero interest at all in the facts because the facts are inconvenient. The facts are scary. In fact, they will arbitrarily reject the facts for their religious fantasies because they're only in this for their fifis, which is positively childish. It's why 100% of the religious videos on YouTube fail, everything from William Lane Craig on down, because they're all doing this, aren't they? They are all looking for emotional comfort and money. And where that comfort comes into conflict with reality, they just throw away reality, at least in their heads, because they'd much rather have the comfort than the facts. What a bunch of dumbasses these people really are. I mean, seriously, seek help.
And that means that everything, including all of our cells, is all part of God. You can see the intelligence in all of our body.
Oh, no, you can't. No intelligence worth anything would put the food intake and the air intake in the exact same place. Chimpanzees can't choke because they lack the enlarged voice box that we have. No intelligence would make the eye like ours is set up. If the octopus can have eyes without our shortcomings, then why can't we? Our skeletal system is a mess. Effectively, our femur and our tibia, they're just duct taped together. They are easily prone to injury because of it. It means that people, as they get older, they lose function and experience pain in their joints because of how poorly that they're put together. And don't even start with childbirth, which is just stupid. Try to pass a watermelon through something the size of a lemon. And while we're in that area, female urethras, they're too short, which makes them more likely to get UTIs. That's not design. That's one of the downsides of taking a quadrupedal creature and having it evolve to bipedalism. And that also means that your back sucks and all of your internal organs are hanging the wrong direction. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on with all of this nonsense because the whole idea of human design is just laughable. Evolution has no end goal, which is why our bodies are such a mess. It works well enough to reproduce, but after that, we generally fall apart.
You can't deny that reality is intelligent. Otherwise, you couldn't use your rationality to have an intellectual conversation with me.
First off, I am not having a conversation with you. You don't seem to understand how all this YouTube stuff works. It's kinda one way. Secondly, he's throwing around a category error. That which is true of some of the universe is not necessarily true of the universe as a whole. Just because there is intelligent life, maybe because, let's be honest, there's a lot of really dumb people out there, aren't there? That doesn't mean that the universe itself is intelligent. Intelligence is just an emergent property of the physical brain. I know he doesn't like that fact, but from all the evidence that we have, a fact it remains. Again, fee-fees over facts and emotions over evidence. They don't care what's actually true. They care only what makes them happy, and that is positively stupid. Not that they care or anything because, well, you know.
Because the fact that you deny that reality has intelligence to it, you're using your intelligence of the universe to disagree with me that reality is intelligent.
While proving, once and for all, that you are not intelligent. This is not the slam dunk that a lot of them want to pretend that it is. Because ignorance is not a virtue. Clueless is not a job description. The religious have no clue what the hell they're talking about, and let's be honest, they don't want one. That's really the sad part of all of this, because they're the ones doing it to themselves. They're dumb and, sadly, too dumb to know how dumb they are, because they just really like how it feels when they're dumb. Kinda pathetic, isn't it? It's like talking to people who believe that all of this is a simulation. That will kill off a couple of brain cells right there. They're all doing the same sort of thing, taking the things that sound good to me and pretending that that makes it true. There has to be something seriously miswired upstairs, or they're just pathetically undereducated. Probably both. But neither makes their arguments rational or supported by any evidence, which is really what they need, but they don't comprehend that, do they? Because, you know, dipshit. Big surprise there.
So, if you're denying that intelligence exists, you're basically denying that you're intelligent.
And there goes the goalpost again, right? He's now changed his tune. It was, the universe is intelligent, and now you're denying intelligence exists. Yeah, stop being an asshole. But of course, this is really the best that they can do, and they know it. Or maybe they don't, which is even a sadder state of affairs all around. The religious play a lot of word games, don't they? Whatever it takes to get to the point that they're after, no matter how irrational or dishonest it happens to be. Because they are not concerned about reality at all, are they? Lying for the Lord or whatever, it's a time-honored tradition among the religious wingnuts, But we're not interested, are we? We want to see the evidence that they have, and they've got none to present. It's just word games and bullshit faith. Maybe stop making fools of yourself, okay? Because it's really not helping your case.
So, I don't know, I'm just rambling on with this, but the thing is reality is intelligent, and you are one part of that intelligence.
You keep asserting that. You haven't done a damn thing to back it up, but you keep asserting that. Why is that? Well, I think we all know that you can't. This whole video has just been a ridiculous failure, as almost all religious videos are, because it's not intended to get to the actual truth. They don't care what's actually going on. They're only after those warm, fuzzy feelings that they're really desperate to reach. And that's stupid. You don't just get to assert things because it strokes your childish ego. You have to be able to back it up. And Austin here, he hasn't even tried yet, has he? He's just asserted nonsense confidently because he really likes the idea. And that is positively stupid. That is, sadly, the religious way, and honestly, there are plenty of non-religious people who do it too. I just really like the idea. Doesn't mean anything. But it's all they've got, and that's why they're so laughable. But then again, what can we expect, given their clear lack of critical thinking skills?
And just think that reality is more intelligent than you.
Prove it. The only one around here who has no intelligence is Austin. This guy is almost at Matt Powell levels, and that's kind of saying something, isn't it? I mean, maybe slightly higher, because at least he doesn't look like he's about to drool, but the difference really isn't that much. This is just asserting your way to victory and losing the whole way down. Not really much of a surprise, but still a damn stupid way to go through life. So we're almost at the end of his video. Let's just pull together and see if we can make it to the end. Because this is really, really painful, isn't it? But when we went into this, what more did we expect?
And there's your answer to, does God exist? God is the intelligence that is greater than you, that's part of all of this. We are all inside of the intelligence. It's just recognizing that.
You can't recognize something that you can't actually show is true, and he has just wasted the last 5.5 minutes just rambling on, making a complete fool of himself, and showing that everyone was right to downvote him and tell him what an idiot he is in his comments. Honestly, I don't go looking for these videos that make the religious look dumb. They kind of do that to themselves. I'd much rather never do another one of these again, but I'd have to shut the channel down completely to do that, wouldn't I? I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel because that's where all the religious scum collects. There just isn't anything better. And if you think there is, let me know down in the comments because I'd love to see it. Anyone with actual evidence, not running on pure faith and fee-fees, who actually cares about demonstrable reality more than their own emotional comfort, I wish I knew where those people hung out, because I can't find them anywhere. Even among theologians and Bible scholars, they might be able to evaluate the Bible or other religious books intelligently, but when it gets to their own personal faith, all that goes right out the window, and they're back to pure faith and fee-fees. That is not how you argue for the truth of anything. That's how you make a complete fool of yourself. But they don't care because they've just rationalized the whole thing in their heads to the point that up is down and left is right and reality and fantasy are the exact same thing. Just like Austin here. And that's pathetic, right?